All right, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. We are live. Uh, Hi. This is really strange when there's a delay between what I see on my side and your side. So as you can see, I made a little bit of tweak here. Well, first I will, because I missed it last time, we'll see who all is in the chat. We have, oh, darn it. Okay. That is unfortunate. I tried to set up a new thing and it's not working correctly. The super chat thing is not working. So we'll switch back to the old one, I guess. Because that was pretty not great. Uh I tried. I mean, at least you know what? The background looked nice. Let's see, I have stream elements open in one of these here somewhere. And we'll just, oops, wrong thing. Oh my god, you guys. All right. We'll disable that for a second here since it's not working properly. Well, let's see. All right, so unfortunately, there will be no alerts on this screen now with super chats. But that's because I tried to edit it today and it clearly did not work. So that's that. All right, let's see here. Well, I will see who's in the house first because I missed that last time. We have Andrew Kang, Talisman, Mike Sharp, Jesse Meek, Michael Tomlinson, Robert Graham. We have John Morgan, Captain Mac, Richard Elby, who tells me that my channel is blocked at the VA, which is interesting. Jonathan Stevie, Tada. Let's see. Andy Robichaud is in. We have Squid Monkey, and we have Q sent a tip ahead of time saying that he was running late, enjoying some Chinese food. Let's see. I believe it was it Squid Monkey that said that you are in a bad mood today. Me too, bro. Me too. Let's see. We have Chris Ford and Michael J. Nomad 0036. Let's see. Who else? We have Uncle Mike is in, Jason J, Chester Thomas, Lou Flores, Viking Jesus, Robert Graham, Michael Leslie, Matthew Dunn, Nomad 0600, Carolina Infidel, Leonidas Alberia, Steve Rooney, Robert Chappelle, Nick in the Focus, Destiny Troll, Sabby, I'm just gonna say Sabby because I'm not gonna say that whole long thing. 1 through 10 ASDF. A dubs 9 Nosverde, 2N no. Let's see. Joshua A Demic PNP, G Keyman 565, John Swicegood, Matthew Dunn. We have Frank, just Frank. And here is Trashman's intro. I wish that I could put it on the screen for you guys. Live from Dystopia, it's the lady who quests in dungeons, puts discs at above ground holes, and is most decidedly on the Let's Go Brandon team. So with those warm and fuzzy thoughts, here's Dolly. Thank you. So the Let's Go Brandon thing, I've been seeing that everywhere, and is that in reference to the fuck Biden chants that were at the football game? Is that like code for that, or is that something else that I have missed? Someone let me know, because it's been a wild week, guys, and I've definitely missed out on some things. Oh, we also have Danny 556 Media, Ken O, Seamus Dirty Moccasins, Timo Rake, I think. Let's see, Mr. E, Landon Williams, Philip Mullis, Marina Core, Tony Abernathy, Brad Branch, Gary Clark, Highlander 53, Miami Vlad, Mismatched Sock, John Swicegood, Stevie 762, Nosrede says Marco. All right, I'll try to remember that and just be like, Marco. No guarantee. I'm really bad with names. We have Jennifer Winkler who says this is her favorite stream of the week. Hopefully, I do not disappoint today. Desert Tramp, David Neal, Deranged and Lunatic, Tim Hazel, The Conservative Patriot, Endless Parts. Fine Ape is in. Trashman says, yep, okay. So that is what it is. Oh, it was at NASCAR. Oh, so there was one at NASCAR and at the Jets game. Oh, that's fun. Oh, that's fun. As you can see, I said the F word because there was a few times when I have sworn on this show. Some people suggested, and I don't know if it was a joke, but they suggested that I call this instead Liberty Doll Uncensored, and I was like, you know what? Screw it, why not? We'll give it a shot. We'll see what happens. Liberty Doll Uncensored. It's basically the same stream. I've just changed the name. Let's see. What else is new? Oh, good. Nightbot is working now. Okay. I had to turn that on last time because, yeah, there was some stuff going on, and apparently it wasn't working properly in OBS. And yes, Liberty Doggo is in the background. So, some housekeeping announcements and things ahead of time. As you can see, we have a little bit of a different design. And I'm glad that we got that super chat out of the way and saw that the alerts didn't work properly because I could not remember how to test it out ahead of time to make sure it looked okay. So that's why we don't have that. But it'll be on the screen when we are reading some articles. What else? So we have the tip jar set up. We have yes. Channel memberships. There were some requests for some channel memberships. So that is now, I believe it's live. It had to be reviewed by YouTube and they approved it. And as far as I know, I've set it to go live, but I've tested it out and I don't actually see the button on my channel. So I don't know what the deal is with that. But channel memberships, if you become a member to the channel, it's basically the same tiers as Patreon and Subscribestar. There are some folks that don't like to do those and prefer to just do it all on one platform. You can also donate through my website and do a tier there. Again, it's all the same tiers because the goal here was to streamline everything. And the way that it is now streamlined is anything that is tiered, like member-only content, and is through Patreon or Subscribestar is posted there, but also all of it is posted on the new Discord that has now been set up. So if you are, John Morgan says it's not showing up yet, that is really disappointing. So if you are in Patreon, if you are on Subscribestar, if you are through the website, if you subscribe through my website, you're going to have to send me an email. But if you are on Subscribestar or Patreon and you have a Discord account linked, then you should have automatically been inputted into the Discord. If not, I also posted links on both of those platforms so that you can join in, and you should be automatically thrown into your level. And we have general chat topics in there. We have all kinds of stuff. There's exclusive channels by tier as well. And since YouTube requires fun little member-only emojis and things like that to do channel memberships, I created my own. There's only 2 so far, but I handmade them myself yesterday, and they are also special emojis that you can use in the Discord as well. Yeah, Tim Allen says he doesn't see the join button either. Well, all right. Well, it's supposed to be there. So hopefully they will allow that to go through soon. So I see some people talking about asking what are the topics for tonight. Well, wait, did I just see someone mention Smuggler's Notch in the chat? Where did I just see that? I did! Andy Robichaud says that he drove through Smuggler's Notch. I'm assuming that's not the same Smuggler's Notch that... Oh, is it the same Smuggler's Notch in Vermont? Because there is a disc golf course there. The GMC, they have the Green Mountain Championship at Smuggler's Notch and Fox Run. Anyways, yes, there is the snake and Liberty Doggo special emojis that we have in the Discord now and for YouTube members. Alright, so topics for tonight. We're gonna get what we get to. But we have several things on the docket for today. We have the September job report. We have new vaccine mandates in Los Angeles. We have... Remember how in New York they were talking about bringing in the National Guard if there were too many people that got fired for not being vaccinated, and then they were like, oh, well, we didn't have to fire anyone. Well, now they have started firing people. We have a hospital system that is denying organ transplants to anyone who is unvaccinated. Sweden is suspending some of the vaccines due to some side effects and health risks that YouTube doesn't want me to talk about. We've got some crazy things that the Biden administration is doing with search engines and the Department of Justice. And we have a really bizarre thing that a representative posted up on Twitter and said that he was going to be introducing into Congress. And maybe we'll start with that because that's the wackiest. And that's the thing that I suppose you could say I have the most prepared. Today was going to be the day that I pulled together all of my topics and made the stream look even prettier. And unfortunately, it was a very dramatic day with some family drama and some crises that have since been diverted. But long story short, and this would be true for anyone. Oh yes, the nice grenade. Figured since this is in the background, I might as well have some props. I didn't get them all out yet, but anyone who lives in North or South Carolina right now on the western side of the state, well, y'all also now know what 7 inches of rain looks like when you get it all at one time, and how it tends to get places that it's not supposed to go. We had it the easiest, apparently, because I saw in the news there were some people that lost their trailers and their campers, and one of the big cities here is like half without power. So we apparently got it easy. It's supposed to rain some more, which is a little bit frightening. But yeah, when you get 7 inches of rain all at one time, finds places that it's not supposed to, and I'll just leave it at that. So, with all of that being said, we will, let's see. Let's get into some of these news items here. All right, so on this screen, we will have the notifications, at least. And, Como's Dice, I don't really know how to say that, is from Charlotte, so then you probably know. You probably experienced that today and yesterday. So, to be fair, well, I won't even say to be fair, I am 99% sure that this is satirical and was introduced as such, but the fact of the matter is this guy said that he's going to introduce it, and that is pretty worrisome. But this fellow here, Representative Chris Rabb, I don't even know, is he Pennsylvania? Does it even say? Yes, Pennsylvania. So this is something that went around Twitter this week, and it is clearly in response to the Texas abortion bill. It's pretty extreme, very extreme, actually. And like I said, I mean, this is satirical and tongue in cheek, but it's still something that this man is planning to introduce, and that is worrisome. So yes, Gamma Goblin Miller, I am only 99% sure. I won't even say 99. I'll say I am 99% sure because, you know what? Real life is too close to satire these days, and it's impossible to tell at this point. So this is from Rep. Chris Rabb over in Pennsylvania. In October 2nd, he said, I will be introducing a bill inspired by Rep. Kelly Cassidy that requires all inseminators to undergo vasectomies within 6 weeks of having their third child or 40th birthday, whichever comes first. Hashtag repro justice, hashtag reproductive rights, hashtag abortion is healthcare. The next tweet says, my forthcoming bill will codify the definition of wrongful conception to include when a person has demonstrated negligence toward preventing conception during intercourse. And to top it off, this legislation will allow Pennsylvanians to take civil action against inseminators for unwanted pregnancies who wrongfully conceive a child with them. Lastly, this bill will empower Pennsylvanians to enforce this prospective law by offering a $10,000 reward for reporting to the proper authorities those scofflaws who have not complied with this statute within the allotted time frame. So this is so ridiculous that's why I say that it has to be satire and tongue-in-cheek, but again, you never know. And saying it's clearly got some allusions to the abortion bill in Texas. And there was, this made me laugh. Don't tread on D's. And yeah, I see people in the chat are talking about that time back in the day when we had forced sterilization, and there are other people that are talking about that in thread here. So then he did a link to a special memo that went to the Pennsylvania House. So we're going to read that here because I mean this gets into the real meat and potatoes of the issue here and operationalizes our definitions so we know exactly what we're talking about. And no, it is not a new band name, The Inseminators. I see you there in the chat. And that is also an excellent question, Greg Adams. What about trans women? So here is the House co-sponsor memoranda that this guy sent out to all House members, enforcing reproductive responsibility among men. So hopefully you guys can read this here. It's a little hard to see in all of this, and I am missing a window. That's what's here. Well, alright, I'll have to figure that out later. I don't remember where that window went and how to grab it again. Anyways, so this memo says, for far too long, the public debate around abortion, contraception, and related reproductive matters has thrust government into the center of restrictions on the bodily autonomy of women and girls. Rarely is there a meaningful dialogue around public policy focusing on the personal responsibility of cisgender men in this sphere. So I guess that answers your question, person in there who asked about whether or not how trans men fall into this. And I see someone says that this is Babylon Bee levels of trolling. It is. And that's what 90% sure it is trolling, but at the same time, there were people in the Twitter thread that agreed with it. And that is the part that is concerning. He goes on to say the rights of cisgender men have always been paramount in our society, with little focus on their responsibility as inseminators to change their behaviors for the good of their partners, families, and society at large. And by the way, in case you didn't notice, this is a white dude. Well, I mean, I don't know. He might not be white. It's hard to tell. But he's not a black dude, I can tell you that. But I mean, these are the only kinds of folks that say things like this. As we head towards climax, actually, it's a good thing we named this one Uncensored. As we head towards climax on this heated discord around this delicate matter, we should come together to address it with surgical precision. We must also commit to mending the social fabric being sliced up by bitter acrimony. In order to improve public health outcomes and release sweet justice into our households and bedrooms, we must wrap our love of individual liberty in the moral imperative of greater personal responsibility and acknowledge men's essential role in procreation. Therefore, I will be introducing legislation that will require all inseminators to undergo vasectomies within 6 weeks from having their third child or 40th birthday, whichever comes first. Further, this legislation will allow Pennsylvanians to take civil action for unwanted pregnancies against inseminators who wrongfully conceive a child with them. This legislation will also empower Pennsylvanians to enforce this new law by offering a $10,000 reward for reporting to the proper authorities those scofflaws who have not complied with the statute within the allotted time frame. As long as state legislatures continue to restrict the reproductive rights of cis women, trans men, oh, there are your trans men, and non-binary people, there should be laws that address the responsibility of men who impregnate them. Thus, my bill will also codify wrongful conception to include when a person has demonstrated negligence towards preventing conception during intercourse. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. In the spirit of this popular axiom, I encourage my colleagues to take a gander at this forthcoming bill that seeks to end this egregiously gendered double standard for the benefit of all individuals, our families, and our great Commonwealth. Now the thing is, like I said, I'm 99% sure that we are, this is trolling. But the fact of the matter, there remains then that this guy is sitting in his state Congress and he's getting paid taxpayer dollars and he is using them to troll and to gunk up the legal system in this state with memos like this, and is tweeting things like this. And there are idiots who will say, well, yes, this is an excellent idea. And then they're gonna want this guy to actually push this. Now, I don't know if this has actually been introduced in any way for real. Looking on his Twitter feed, it looks like not yet. But still, cool, bro. You're being paid taxpayer dollars to troll, and that's it's quite frankly, it's a waste of money, is what it is. And I just thought that was funny. And what's interesting is on the back of that, there is this thing that is trending on Twitter today. Let's see if it's still up there. Yes. So there is something trending today. Sexual anarchy. Conservative commentator Charlie Kirk says in a new video that Democrats want the United States to live in a sexual anarchy. This video, I'm not going to play it because it's just kind of bizarre. It's just kind of like rambling. And then towards the end, he's like, Democrats want us to live in sexual anarchy. And I'm not really sure what that means exactly. But it's just some offhanded comment that he made in the middle of a rant that, you know, had some good points talking about how the Democrats are trying to get the country away from private property. You know, it basically talking about everything that's happened in the last 18 months or so with COVID and all of that, and the Great Reset and all of these things that Democrats are calling for. And then in the end, he makes some little, offhanded comment about sexual anarchy, which I think really is a non sequitur and not really all that accurate, quite frankly, in my opinion. But that is trending. But, you know, this guy with his, little house memo about inseminators, like, nah. And I see that Acyclone Steve in the chat says, he said it's satire, so it will be California law in 8 years. Accurate, right? See if I can get... See. Disable the preview. Can I get to my activity feed here? I really don't. Oh, is that it? I'm sorry, guys, for the technical difficulties here. I know that there is a... Wait, I don't understand where this window went. Oh. Okay. Let's see. See if I can get this to expand. There we go. Okay. Now we got it. Because I wanted to be able to make sure that I can catch the tips and things like that as well. All right, so we had a tip, like I said, from Q earlier, said he was running late, and that he's feasting on Chinese food. And here we go. Jesse says, love the Vietnam era boom ball in the background. LOL. Yeah, I got that at the local gun show, actually. And Jesse says, question mark, and this is where we are with our government. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Now, someone said that because it's satire, it will end up being California law in a few years. So, you know, this is a great sequitur here over to this article here that is in Deadline. Los Angeles officials vote to require proof of vaccination at movie theaters, concert and sports venues, restaurants, with fines up to $5,000. To my knowledge, this is stricter even than the New York vaccine passports. And what's funny is news outlets like CNN and stuff like that think that this is excellent and great and something that should be expanded across the entire country. Because that's sensical. I don't know. So this is over in LA. It says, no one will force you to get a vaccine, but if you do decide not to get one, there are certain things you will not be able to do, says the LA City Council President Nuri Martinez about a vote taken today, which was actually October 6th. This was 2 days ago. A vote taken on the 6th that will require people to show proof of full COVID-19 vaccination before entering indoor entertainment venues. The amendment to the city ordinance passed with 11 yeses and 2 noes. Councilman Joe Oh, these people's names, Buscano and John Lee were the only two dissenters. There were two people who were absent. And there was an urgency clause on the ordinance, which required 12 yes votes on its second consideration. And it will begin to apply, it looks like November 4th. So 1 month from its publication, or November 6th. So they haven't decided yet, as of this writing, whether it starts November 4th or November 6th. But starting then, people in LA will need to show proof of full COVID-19 vaccination before entering indoor movie theaters, concert and sports event venues, restaurants, bars, gyms, shopping centers. Now this one is interesting because shopping centers, well, okay, what qualifies a shopping center? Are we talking about like Marshalls and TJ Maxx? Or are we talking about Whole Foods? Are we talking about grocery stores, pharmacies? What's the deal here? You know, they're not really explaining and expanding what exactly that means, but I believe that shopping centers is deliberately vague. They like to do things like that in the legal world, especially in California, as well as personal care establishments. I'm assuming that's places like salons, barbershops, nail places, is what I'm guessing. They're saying that the stakes are too high, and so now it is no longer negotiable. Those with medical or religious exemptions will need to provide a recent negative COVID test. So even if you are exempt, you need a negative COVID test. Now, I'd like to remind you here, full proof of full COVID vaccination, depending on the state, the definition of that now includes booster shots. So, there is a distinct possibility that you could be someone who got your first shot, or maybe you got your J&J shot, or whatever, but you haven't gotten your booster yet. There is a possibility that you will be denied entry because you haven't had your booster. Indoor public spaces that fall under the ordinance would be required to display advisory notices of the vaccination requirement. So it applies to, look at this list here. So it actually spells out exactly what it is. So we have entertainment and recreation venues, which includes movie theaters, again, shopping centers. They don't expand on what that means. Movie theaters, shopping centers, concerts, performance venues, adult entertainment venues. So you have to be fully vaccinated to go to the strip club in LA, my friends. Commercial event and party venues, sports arenas, convention centers, exhibit halls, museums, malls. See, this is interesting too because it has shopping centers and malls. So that means that these two things are supposed to be two different things. I mean, shopping center, are we talking about like a strip mall plaza? They don't expand on that. So, I mean, that means they could decide all willy-nilly what is included and what isn't. Performing arts theaters, bowling alleys, arcades, card rooms, family entertainment centers, pool and billiard halls, play areas, and game centers. Play areas, to me, I think of like the play place in McDonald's. Also, any establishment that serves food or beverages, including restaurants, bars, fast food, coffee shops, tasting rooms, cafeterias, food courts, breweries, wineries, distilleries, banquet halls, and hotel ballrooms. Gym and fitness centers, which that is pretty self-explanatory. So personal care establishments is spas, nail salon, hair salon, barbershop, tattoo parlors, anything with skincare, massage therapy. Oh my god, I cannot imagine. I don't know, man. Now also remember, there's also a mask mandate in LA. So not only you have to be fully vaccinated, but you still have to wear a mask in public. So they want you to go and get your massage where you're face down in this table and it's hard to breathe anyways, and now you have to have a mask and be fully vaccinated on top of it. Even to go to the strip club. Because that was up there under entertainment. Gotta be vaccinated and masked to go to the strip club. You can't see naked women without your mask and your vaccine. Or I guess naked men, whatever you're into. Police stations would also be included in the ordinance, according to testimony last week. So if you need to go to the cops, this is so crazy, to fill out a police report, you can't do it if you're not vaccinated? Oh my god. It would also likely impact the availability of NBA, NFL, and other professional sports stars who refuse vaccination. I'm still stuck on the fact that they are applying this to strip clubs and massage parlors of all places where, like, let's be real, some of these places you can walk in and get your happy ending, but it has to be a masked and vaccinated happy ending. And police stations, talk about forming, like, different tiers of society between first and second class citizens. If you can't go into a police station and file a police report or a restraining order or I don't know if in LA you have to do well, I don't even know if you can even get a gun license there, but like in Massachusetts, you have to go and drop off your paperwork in person, and you have to get fingerprinted, and you have to do an interview with the chief of police. So does they say that Massachusetts institutes something like this? So does that mean that then you can't get your carry permit or your FID if you're not vaccinated? Like, is LA, is that sort of like this underpinning here? But all of that, it's unclear if this includes theme parks. But remember, I mean, we had those really bizarre rules that came out of California earlier this year saying that you couldn't scream on roller coasters and you had to be masked in the amusement parks to try to, mitigate the possible spread of COVID. So it's possible now that you can't scream on roller coasters or theme rides. You have to be masked and you have to be vaccinated to get into the park. Larry Lommel says, well, you can't be arrested unless you're vaccinated either. But last Tuesday, LA County announced that COVID vaccination and testing requirements for visitors to large venues such as Six Flags, Universal Studios, etc. will remain, but the county will no longer require proof of a negative COVID test for patrons aged 11 and younger, an age group that remains ineligible for vaccination. So the only people that don't have to provide any proof of vaccination also don't have to get tested if you're going to Six Flags or Universal Studios. Okay? Oh, and previously you also had to provide a photo ID along with your proof of vaccination, but now they have nixed that for anyone 17 and younger. But people will still have to provide the vaccination and testing verification beginning, now this says October 7th, which is different than up here, our November 6th. So it looks like they voted it in, and in some arenas it goes into effect right away, and in others it doesn't. Jurisdictions within the county may pass even stricter and more stringent guidelines. I don't see how they could get much stricter or more stringent than that, except for maybe not allowing exemptions or testing for people with exemptions. But hey, then the LA Department of Building and Safety are going to be the ones responsible for enforcement. And here is the enforcement tiers and fines that they'll have. So for a person's first infraction, they're just told to correct Second infraction, $1,000. Third infraction, $2,000. Any subsequent infraction after that is $5,000. And in addition, if they think that you are presenting a fake vaccination card, well, that's against federal law now, so they're going to report you to the FBI. Because that's totally reasonable to charge people $5,000 for not being vaccinated and trying to go shopping or trying to go to the police station and fill out a police report. But then if they try to get around it by presenting a fake card, well, not only are they getting the county fine of, say, $5,000, but also now they're going to be reported to the FBI, and the feds will also charge them $5,000. And as Tim Allen says, so, well, showing your ID with your vaccination card is okay, but having to show an ID for voting is racist, right? We've spoken about that on the show before. The only time that you don't have to be vaccinated is if you are using an outdoor area of a location or an indoor area to just like quickly pick up your takeout or go pee. Basically, that's it. Those are the only exceptions in LA. There were several people that had opposed it at the meeting and claiming that the vaccines are dangerous, and others saying it was a form of segregation and comparing it to tactics used by Nazis during the 1930s and 40s. In Germany, by the way, speaking of Nazis, they've apparently introduced this new thing where you show your vaccination pride by wearing a bright yellow badge. Sound familiar? And just a little speculation there. But Germany gonna Germany, I guess. I see that Jesse Meek says, does anyone else remember a little thing called HIPAA? Well, see, the fun thing about HIPAA is, technically speaking, HIPAA applies to anyone who works in the healthcare field. So, while it is an extreme breach of privacy for, say, I don't know, Walmart, that would probably be considered a shopping center. So I don't know if there's a Walmart in LA, but we'll say that there's a Walmart in LA. So even though it would be a really big breach of privacy, like personal privacy, for Walmart to be like, show me your papers, because Walmart is asking, and you yourself are not the treating physician or involved in any way in treatment, technically you are allowed to release your own information however you see fit, right? So that doesn't actually fall under HIPAA. Now, if I, as your doctor, comes in and Walmart asks me if you're vaccinated, well then, and I say something, well then that is the HIPAA violation. Not, like, you can choose to release your information to anyone who you would feel like it, and it's not a HIPAA thing. HIPAA is strictly for, like, doctors, nurses, mental health people, anyone who works in any, like, health or mental health setting. So unfortunately, HIPAA doesn't really technically apply. And so when people use it, it sometimes tends to dampen the argument. It is still an extreme breach of privacy, and Walmart, government, whoever it is, has no business knowing that information. But so, as an example, I was actually talking about this with someone else today. So Walmart can say to you, show me your papers. It's not a HIPAA violation. when the state of Massachusetts said to me, okay, well, if you want to see people in person in your office, you need to petition the Department of Health and tell them exactly why this person needs to come into in-person therapy and can't have their therapy at home over a Zoom call. If I had provided that information, then that is a HIPAA violation because I'm talking about someone else that I'm treating. And the crazy thing is, to do so ethically and perfectly legally, I would have had to have those clients and patients sign a release form to allow me to release their information to the Department of Health. The Department of Health wanted more information than even insurance companies ask for, and the Department of Health was trying to get people to do it without signing releases of information. Thereby, they were trying to get people to commit HIPAA violations. And I mean, a reason for someone needing in-person treatment could be anything from, that's what they feel more comfortable with, to, yes, Department of Health, unfortunately, this client is having an affair on their wife, and that's been the topic of conversation, and so he doesn't feel comfortable having that conversation at home in case his wife walks in on him talking about cheating on his wife. That would be the kind of information that the Department of Health would want to know without signing a release of information. HIPAA violation. So you can see the difference between the two. David Neal says, do strippers cause HIPAA violations? I don't think so. In what way? Now, of course, there are, Brian Blackwell says, how about our right to privacy? Oh yeah, people, in my mind, absolutely have a right to privacy. The government would argue otherwise right now, and they would probably try to cite some nonsensical, public health for the greater good bullshit or something like that. People absolutely have a right to privacy, but that right to privacy in this regard is not what's codified into HIPAA. I mean, I have to have my own HIPAA notice that I give people, and I would show that to you if it didn't have my practice information on it. But it's very strictly about your doctors, therapists, nurses, billing departments, whoever's ability to release your personal information personal health information to a third party. Not you releasing that information to a third party. Like, does that make sense? Let's see. We have, Omega says, oh, where did it go? Come on, where did it go? Well, Jesse Sowell, thank you for the super sticker. Jesse Meek says, so is there such a thing as takeout adult clubs in LA asking for a friend? No, but I do remember back in the day, last year in 2020, I think it was Oregon. I think Oregon actually created outdoor strip clubs temporarily so that strippers could still work during COVID. So, I mean, you might be able to find them in Portland or something, but you're not going to find them in LA. Omega says, Reisitsu 316, and lo, I say unto thee that in the last days of freedom, idiots shall rule the world, and stupidity shall inherit the earth. Oh, man. Q says, I have piles of hard drives from doctor's offices and such sitting at my office. Oh boy, oh boy. Well, so you might have had to sign a BAA, or the health office would have had to sign a BAA with you. I mean, at least that's how it works in mental health. So, to be HIPAA compliant, the little website program, whatever, that I use to do my video calls, has to be one that offers a BAA, which is a business, it's like a business association agreement or something like that, which is just a thing that says, well, we try to encrypt our stuff and we try to be HIPAA compliant, and if you sign this, then you're being HIPAA compliant. I don't know why that is the voice that I chose for that, but it is. And so, like a business agreement, if you have a signed business agreement between the two of you, then that makes it HIPAA compliant. But if you decided to comb through those hard drives and release that information, oh boy, that's naughty. So don't do that. That is very bad. That is very, very no good, bad thing. Ace Cyclone Steve says, if you refuse to answer at Walmart and the police are called and find out you're vaxxed and tell Walmart, is the cop in trouble for giving out your info? I don't think so, because it's a cop. And cops, even if legally they would be in trouble, let's be real. There are a lot of cops out there that do whatever they want. And so probably nothing would happen. So that is how all of that works. Nunya Business says strippers should be given free healthcare, and so should all of us. Take note, Canadians break a bone and pay nothing. It cost me $900. Well, right, but if you break a bone, you can go to the emergency room and get it taken care of right away. Canadians might have to wait a week or 5 or 10. And Canadians are also contemplating some vaccine passports. And actually, I saw a headline earlier this week that France, I believe, is mentioning that they're going to require them for everyone. Let's see. Find one that's not from a random blog. Ah, goodness. Let's see if we can translate this into English. So let's see, is this, so we have this that just popped up in France. This is supposedly a government website. This is supposedly the Senate Social Affairs Committee, at least as translated by a Google Translate. Oh, it says that it was rejected. So, all right. This would have, let's see. This would have imposed mandatory vaccination of a misdemeanor sanction for non-compliance as of January 1st, 2022. And it looks like it was rejected. So, that's good. But it's still something that was being contemplated in France. And I've had some folks send me, I can't remember what exactly off the top of my head, but I've definitely had some folks lately sending me some nasty goings on in Canada. And I mean, quite frankly, my mother's side of the family is from French Canada, and I have had relatives that have died on the waiting lists for simple procedures in Canada. So that universal healthcare, free healthcare, ain't it? First of all, it's not free. You're paying for it in higher taxes, and that universal healthcare just ain't it. Rod Miller says, I thought it was biased to force a person to get an ID other than driver license, but now it's okay when it comes to new pandemic regulations. Well, I mean, yeah, unfortunately, the government said, oh, well, we can't let this crisis go to waste. Who was it that said that originally? Was it Rahm Emanuel? One of Obama's guys? Was that him? Can't let a good crisis go to waste, right? And so they're going to find ways to use this to their advantage to gain more control. And when has a government ever voted itself out of control? Never. So it's just an excuse for them to exert control. Some people are speculating that it will usher in the advent of a social credit system. You could argue that the vaccine passport in and of itself is a social credit system. There's different arguments to be had there, but right, and we talked about, I think it was last week, that BLM actually came out against vaccine mandates and said that they are racist. Supposedly, there are some chapters of Antifa that are coming out against the vaccine mandates, calling them fascist, which is the first time I've ever agreed with Antifa, and it is bizarre. It is a strange, strange world these days in 2021, the age of COVID, 1984, when you find yourself in agreement with people like Nicki Minaj and BLM and Antifa. But the only common thread there is government doing something fucked up and shady. It's just that more people are starting to recognize it. And, you know, we have all of these info dumps coming from, like, Project Veritas, for example, and they're getting some record views, and you can't even post that stuff on Facebook or Twitter anymore. It gets taken down, you get a little slap on the wrist, you get told that you're gonna get banned for X amount of time if you share any of that. I've gotten warnings on my personal page and on my Liberty Doll page. Well, this page posts a lot about vaccines, and you posted that Project Veritas link. And you know, it's funny because those people are not getting really any airtime with the mainstream media, but then we have this Facebook whistleblower. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Facebook was down earlier this week for a pretty significant amount of time. It was several hours. And it was right after a 60 Minutes special aired with a Facebook whistleblower. And there are some theories, there's some speculation that this whistleblower isn't really a real whistleblower and was a plant, or at least is a shitty whistleblower, and the only reason they're getting propped up is because their whole argument is that Facebook is bad for society and polarizes people and all of this, and is not censoring people enough, and is not banning people off of their platform enough. And so Facebook needs to have more censorship and ban more people and have more control over what information gets spread on the platform and what news people see, and all of that for the good of society. Now, it is true that Facebook's algorithms are purposefully polarizing because that's what gets clicks and likes and reactions and shares and blah, 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 blah. But the answer to that, I don't think, is more censorship. You're not going to stop people from being more polarized by censoring them more. So there is even speculation that she's like a Fed and not a real whistleblower, especially considering, you know, some of the other whistleblowers of our time, like, say, Edward Snowden, Julian Assange. Well, let's see, where are they? Well, they are in exile with the federal government threatening them all the time. Julian Assange is in jail in a foreign country. There's been assassination attempts against him. That came out recently. Oh, it turns out that the CIA wanted to assassinate him. and they contemplated it and were trying to figure out a way to do it. But the Facebook lady gets on 60 Minutes and is being praised by the blue checks on Twitter. Give me a break. I forget how I got on that tangent, but Downside 13 says, would someone using politics to control people against their will be a psychopath or a sociopath? Well, technically speaking, neither of those are actually DSM diagnoses. It would just fall under the broad category of antisocial personality disorder. And now everyone says, well, I'm antisocial because I don't like being social. That's not what antisocial means in the clinical sense. In the clinical sense, it basically means you're a psychopath or a sociopath. Now, in the actual criminologic literature, there is a differentiation between psychopathy and sociopathy. I don't remember which is which, but basically one of them is more impulsive and is completely incapable of forming any relationships at all, while the other one can form relationships, however shallow or for their own gain, but they can form relationships, and they're usually a lot more cunning and thoughtful in the way that they plan things. So really the big difference is impulsivity versus really calculated, clever planning. And I believe that it is the sociopath that does the thought out, like, clever planning. So someone, so politicians would probably fall into that, because I'm sure that in their own ways they care about their families and things like that. But they also cultivate relationships for their own gain, for the purpose of power, and are able to sit there and calculate out and have a long-term game plan, rather than someone like, oh goodness, I don't know, your stereotypical, like, school shooter loner or something, maybe. Someone that acts more, I mean, there might be some planning, but they act more on impulse. Those are the differences between the two. I might have them switched, because it's been a long time since I have worked with that population of people, but that is the basics of it. Rinsler says, no, mostly it's no remorse or lack of conscience. Right. Both sociopaths and psychopaths feel that, though. That is one of the requirements for antisocial personality disorder. Basically, a complete lack of rules or respect for rules, laws, people's boundaries, a lack of remorse or conscience, a lack of empathy for other people, not seeing people as people, seeing them rather as tools or objects that can be manipulated. Those are like your hallmarks of antisocial personality. Leonidas Alberia says, Facebook got Capcom to censor Leon Kennedy's flirtatious character in Resident Evil 4. Flirting is half of Leon's character. I'm not familiar with that game. I mean, I know Resident Evil and the Resident Evil franchise, but I'm not familiar enough with the games to know who that is. But that is pretty ridiculous. Facebook is on a power trip, and you could speculate that maybe Mark Zuckerberg falls into one of those categories. I see people telling me to hydrate, and that is very valid. Hydration is good. Jesse Meek says, Orwell had it right, but I'm starting to think it's more like Animal Farm than 1984, or maybe some bizarre combination. Well, remember, Jesse, some animals are more equal than others. The way they keep changing the rules, and seemingly everyone just says, okay. Well, we've always been at war with Eurasia. We've always been at war with COVID, and we'll always be at war with COVID. And I mean, they do have a really nasty habit of going back and scrubbing things, or saying something is fake news and then changing their mind later on and deciding that it's not fake news. The lab leak theory was an excellent example of that. And pretty much anything out of Dr. Fauci's mouth or anything out of Joe Biden's mouth is also an excellent example of that. How about how this $3.5 trillion spending package actually equals zero? You're going to spend $3.5 trillion and yet somehow not spend a single dollar. I mean, I've heard of 2 plus 2 equals 5, but not 3.5 trillion equals 0. That is a new math problem for me. And you know what? I'm not good at math. I don't do algebra. So, I mean, what do I know? But it doesn't seem to add up to me. Let's see. What are some of the other fun things that we have to talk about today? Oh, well, so we mentioned some of these like vaccine mandates in some of these places. Then we mentioned I did 2 streams on this, 2 impromptu streams about the goings-on in New York, how Governor Hochul signed the executive order to give herself basically unlimited emergency powers and the ability to call in the National Guard to replace unvaccinated healthcare workers, of which there was an estimated 95,000. There was about 75,000 in the hospital system and an additional 20,000 in like nursing homes and long-term care facilities and things like that. So she signed this executive order, and she had said, well, we haven't had to close anything yet, and no one's gotten fired yet. But when she signed it and then gave that little press release, well, that's because a lot of places had already put people on unpaid leave preemptively and had already taken preemptive action. And they had done that before she signed the executive order, because she told people she was going to sign it a few days ahead of time. Plus, there was the federal mandate with Joe Biden, and anything that's tied to Medicare or Medicaid payments requires vaccination now. So there were a lot of healthcare systems and things that were doing things preemptively. There were a lot of people that were resigning preemptively. We go back and watch that stream. We saw that there are urgent care centers being shut down. There were emergency rooms that were shut down. There were labor and delivery units that were shutting down in hospitals. But she made the claim that that wasn't happening because, 1984 Orwell language. She's like, well, this hasn't happened since I signed the order. Which technically is right, because it happened before. But a little bit of time has gone by. We've had about a week. Maybe 2 since she signed that. I believe it was, might have been October 1st. Something like that she did it. But, so now since then, we have the largest healthcare system in New York has already fired 1,400 unvaccinated workers, and they're saying, oh, well, it's not a big deal because it's only 2% of its workforce, so it's not going to really affect anything. But again, this is the largest healthcare system in New York, and banning just across New York City, Westchester, and Long Island is 1,400 people. That is a lot of people. So now the workforce across the 23 hospital system is now 100% vaccinated because they fired 1,400 people who can't get work anywhere else unless they get vaccinated. And I believe it was under New York's requirement that there were no exemptions to be had, which is interesting because they're not allowing religious exemptions, and they're saying in a lot of cases that religious exemptions are unfounded. But now, in case y'all missed it, one of the recent Project Veritas revelations that came out this week is leaked documents from Pfizer and folks over at Pfizer revealing this on tape and via email that, yes, indeed, they do use aborted fetal cells in the testing of the vaccines over at the Pfizer lab. And that does provide a sound religious exemption, but Pfizer's keeping that all hush hush because they don't want that information to get out, because they don't want it to be used incorrectly, is what they say in their email chains, basically. But New York doesn't care because you can't get a religious exemption anyways. And they're just going to fire you if you try to get one. So they're like, oh, well, we regret losing any of these employees under these circumstances, but as healthcare professionals and members of the largest healthcare provider in the state, we understand our unique responsibility to protect the health of our patients and each other. We owe it to our staff, our patients, and the communities we serve to be 100% vaccinated. Spokesperson did not respond when requests for comments on religious and medical exemptions. And there was a temporary legal challenge on religious exemptions, and that's been batted around back and forth, and it was for teachers originally, but it has since been partially dismissed. So the standing on that is kind of off in limbo land. And again, Governor Hochul says that there have been no negative consequences to this rule in New York and to her executive order, but we have thousands of unvaccinated healthcare workers were placed on unpaid leave last week due to the governor's mandate. The situation led to some disruptions. Strong Memorial Hospital, for instance, said it was pausing some elective procedures for 2 weeks. And again, people were fired because of their lack of vaccination. Fun times. But you know what? That's just for workers. How about this hospital system that says that it will deny transplants to the unvaccinated in almost all situations? The interesting thing here is I actually saw a photo of a letter that was given to someone telling them that they were being taken off the active wait list because of their refusal to cooperate with vaccine mandates, and that they wouldn't be on the liver transplant list anymore. Well, they would be on the list, but they would be inactive and like drop to the bottom, basically. And I saw that going around Facebook, and then I saw this headline not long after. So a Colorado-based health system says that it is denying organ transplants to patients not vaccinated against the coronavirus in almost all situations, citing studies that show these patients are much more likely to die if they get COVID-19. But at the same time, we have states and countries with insane vaccination rates that also have some of the highest case rates in the country and in the world right now. Just saying. And you know what's interesting too is something like, that almost 70% of the country is vaccinated, and yet COVID deaths in 2021 are higher than they were in 2020. And the year isn't even done yet. So clearly, there's a few things there that maybe don't line up, or we're not getting the full picture there. But, this hospital says, well, there's some studies that show that these people might be more likely to die if they get COVID, so we're going to not keep them on the transplant list, and we're going to deny their life-saving health treatment because they might die if they get this other disease. So they will die of their current health issue if we don't keep them on the transplant list and deny their transplant, but they might die if we do the transplant and then they later get COVID. So we're just going to refuse treatment? I mean, that seems to me like it goes against the Hippocratic Oath, but okay. Uh, the policy illustrates the growing costs of being unvaccinated and wades into deeply controversial territory: the use of immunization status to decide who gets limited medical care. The mere idea of prioritizing the vaccinated for rationed health resources has drawn intense backlash, as overwhelmingly unvaccinated COVID 19 patients push some hospitals to adopt crisis standards of care in which health systems can prioritize patients for scarce resources based largely on their likelihood for survival. So, this came up when the UC Health denied a kidney transplant to a Colorado Springs woman, and it was highlighted by a state rep because she is not vaccinated. But at the same time, mind you, a lot of these people are on special medications that also can render the vaccine less effective. So it's not even necessarily in their best interest or that effective for them to get it in the first place, but now that is the excuse for denying them medical treatment. And the letter was hers, apparently, the one that was going around Facebook. The letter said the woman would be inactivated on a kidney transplant waiting list and had 30 days to start coronavirus vaccination. If she refused to be vaccinated, it said she would be removed from the list completely. UC Health declined to discuss further patients because of federal privacy laws. There's our HIPAA. And the Washington Post could not independently verify the woman's story, but the health system confirmed Tuesday that nearly all of its transplant recipients and organ donors too, must get vaccinated against the coronavirus in addition to other vaccinations and health requirements. So, like, if you die and you're an organ donor and you haven't been vaccinated yet, they're just not going to take your organs and just be like, oh, well, you're not vaccinated. Sorry, brah. Like, a spokesman, Dan Weaver, said that other transplant centers in the United States have similar policies or are transitioning to them, though I haven't heard of this in any other place. And they're like, oh, well, these conditions aren't new, and that transplant centers around the country always have requirements like, not smoking, avoiding alcohol, taking their medications, blah, 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 blah. Right now, more than 100,000 people are on the transplant waiting list, and they're like, well, only a fraction of those got a kidney in 2020. And 17 people die every day waiting for an organ, but somehow that makes this policy okay. I don't know. And they're like, well, multiple studies show that COVID-19 is especially deadly for recipients of kidney transplants, and they say that the mortality rate observed for transplant patients who develop COVID-19, which, remember, you can still get even if you're vaccinated, ranges from about 20% to more than 30%, higher than, they admitted, the 1.6% fatality rate observed generally in the United States, and that's not even the real fatality rate. Wow, Acyclone Steve says the lady has a friend donor. They're saving no one. There you go. And, it goes a little bit more into the controversy, but I mean, we have another. They said that they couldn't independently verify it, but it's also being covered by the Denver News over on CBS. So this is apparently the woman. It says that she met her donor in Bible study just 10 months ago. So this has more information about her herself rather than the policy. So this article was about the policy, and this is more about the woman who was denied the kidney. Colorado woman with stage 5 renal failure was months away from getting a new kidney. Now she and her donor are looking for another hospital after learning of the new policy. And then it talks about their policy. And the woman met her donor in Bible study just 10 months ago. It's your choice in what treatment you have. In Leilani's case, the choice has been taken from her. Her life has now been held hostage because of this mandate. And she has a religious exemption for the vaccine and is still being denied. And she says that there's too many unknowns. And until last week, neither the woman or the donor were told that they had to be vaccinated in order to actually get the transplant. And then here is a copy of the letter that says that the woman and her donor were non-compliant, so they were being taken off of the list. Meanwhile, they're pushing this vaccine, but over in Sweden, this is not the first country. In Sweden, they are suspending the Moderna vaccine completely for anyone aged 30 and younger because, I believe, of myocarditis concerns. And Sweden is not the first country to do this. We saw Denmark did it at one point. Even Australia was doing it at one point, and we're pausing use of the vaccine because of blood clot and myocarditis concerns, which the CDC says doesn't even exist. They say that it's not an issue. There's no link between any of the vaccines and any of these issues, but we have other countries that are flat out like, oh no, this isn't safe to give to people anymore. So over in Denmark, over in Sweden, being reported in Denmark, Swedish health authorities on Wednesday suspended the use of Moderna's COVID-19 vaccination for those ages 30 and under, saying the move was done out of precaution. The reason for the pausing is signals of an increased risk of side effects such as inflammation of the heart muscle or pericardium, which is myocarditis, the double-walled sac containing the heart and the roots of the main vessels. They're saying that the risk is very small, but not small enough to continue with no changes in protocol. They say that they're following the situation closely so they can act quickly to ensure that vaccinations against COVID are always safe as possible and at the same time provide effective protection. In July, the European Medicines Agency recommended authorizing Moderna for children ages 12 to 17, the first time the shot has been authorized for anyone under 18. Moderna's vaccine was given the green light for use in anyone 18 over across the 27-nation EU in January, and it's been licensed in other countries but has not yet been extended to children. But it was when they started extending this into adolescents that they were seeing myocarditis, especially in adolescent boys. And it's manifesting as chest pain is usually the first thing that people notice, and then it keeps going and going and going. They're like, oh, well, the symptoms usually go away on their own, but a lot of times they still require hospitalization, medical treatment, medicines, months and months of doctor's appointments. US and European regulators caution, however, that both the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines appear linked to a rare reaction in teenagers and young adults, chest pain and heart inflammation. They say this here, but again, the CDC and the FDA say that there is no link. But Sweden says that there is, and this article is like, well, the US has mentioned it. So, the Swedish health authorities said that the heart symptoms usually go away on their own, but they must be assessed by a doctor. The conditions are most common among young men in connection with, for example, viral infections, such as COVID-19. In 2019, approximately 300 people under the age of 30 were treated in hospital with myocarditis. So they're saying that because it usually affects young men more anyways, that's why there's no link. And that's what they're trying to say. But again, data points to an increased incident also in connection with vaccination against COVID, mainly in adolescents and young adults, and mainly in boys and men. New preliminary Nordic analyses Analyses, I think they made a typo, indicate that the connection is especially clear when it comes to Moderna's vaccine, especially after the second dose. The increase in risk is seen within 4 weeks after the vaccination, mainly within the first 2 weeks, according to these folks over in Sweden. And so they are suspending it for anyone age 30 and younger currently. I saw that we got some super chats in. Jessawick Euphrasia said that Moderna recall. She had done the super chat for that. Acyclone Steve says the lady was a friend donor. They're saving no one. Thank you for the tip, Anonymous. And Rancho Chava, thank you for the super chat as well. Says, sounds like California. I mean, anything bad sounds like California at this point, right? Tim Allen says, so those of us over 30 don't matter. They would probably try to argue that that population is at higher risk of COVID than they are of myocarditis. And so that's how they would weigh that most likely. So let's see. We didn't get to some of the other stuff here, but the TLDR version, for anyone who missed it, of what's going on with the Justice Department is, with all of the things that are currently happening in the world, the Justice Department has decided they are going to meddle in the local politics of school boards. So there has been an increase in parents on school boards going to these school boards and trying to protect their children from proposed vaccine mandates, from mask mandates, from critical race theory being taught in schools. And there's sort of, this is another place where we've got, you know how we talked about the fact checkers and how I could say, oh, I drank some tea out of a red mug, and the fact checker would say false. The mug was actually scarlet, but she still drank tea. That kind of thing. That's how the fact checkers work. Well, people who are in the school system in regards to critical race theory kind of pull the same thing. So critical race theory technically, by definition, is collegiate level courses that talk about the intersection of race within the justice system, within institutions like that. Technically speaking, it's a legal subject taught at the college level, specifically within legal tracks. Technically speaking. So technically speaking, critical race theory in and of itself is not taught in elementary school, grade school, middle school, or high school. What is taught is how critical race theory comes into practice. So there is a difference. There's a difference between the theory and the praxis, to use the left's own words. And so the practice of critical race theory and how it's applied is these classes about how that talk about capitalism being racist. For example, things like your math problems that point out that, like, little Johnny is getting pulled over by the police because he's black, or you guys have seen some of the examples that have gone around online. The example of in Oregon, they started this new initiative to teach racially sensitive math, where they recognize that, well, black children and other children of color somehow, by their definition, have a different understanding of numbers, and so it's not fair to expect them to come up with the right answer, because the idea of having a right answer and a wrong answer in math is racist and based within white privilege. And so they are now allowing, and this is something that I had been working on and didn't publish because it, kind of fell by the wayside. But there was a whole, this was released by the Oregon Department of Education, and there was a whole training on it and a manual of how to implement this in math classes specifically, and to allow children of color specifically to like submit their homework via TikTok, or to make videos or whatever to represent their math homework and not have to show their work, but the white kids still have to show their work. So that's another example of like critical race theory stuff in practice. And so there have been people who, have kids within these systems, and COVID, when everything went virtual, all of these parents started seeing what their children were being taught and were like, wow, this is pretty messed up. Like, we don't want our kids to be taught this. This is all kinds of wrong, and the bigotry, the soft bigotry of low expectations and all of that stuff. Plus they're against vaccine mandates, plus some of them are against the mask mandates. And so we've had this kind of explosion of parents going to school board meetings to try to protest this stuff. And of course we've had several instances where people on school boards and teachers and things like that had meetings that were closed door meetings, but they accidentally went on a hot mic and went live and said really horrendous things about parents and students and things like that. So parents are finally getting involved again in their children's education, and they're going to these school board meetings, and they are giving these people a piece of their mind. Well, the Department of Justice has decided that this is dangerous and qualifies as assault and harassment. And so now the DOJ says that they're going to have the FBI investigate these local politics and these local school board meetings and investigate what they're calling targeted harassment against school officials. And the parents say that the Biden administration is doing it to stop criticism of COVID policies and woke learning. And that's basically the nutshell version. The Justice Department on Monday directed federal, state, and local law enforcement to address a quote-unquote disturbing spike in harassment against public school board members and teachers. The move comes as parents increasingly flock to school board meetings to voice their concerns with COVID mitigation strategies and critical race theory. And basically the complaint is that the DOJ and FBI and all that are now acting as activists and is weaponizing the government against parents. And this comes on the heel of a recent article. I forget which platform it was on or which outlet it was with, but there was an article that came out, and it was all about like the myth of parental rights and how parents don't actually have rights over their children and the government can do whatever they want. And it was not satirical, it wasn't trolling, it was wholly and completely genuine. So we had that article come out, and then we have this DOJ memo about how the FBI is going to be like investigating the parents at your local school board meeting. So they're basically getting involved in local politics and local law enforcement, which they don't do on any other level for anything else or any other crime, but because it's against COVID policies or the new like wokeism of politics. Well, now the FBI needs to get involved because you don't want little Johnny being forced to get a vaccine that Sweden says causes all of these side effects. This vaccine that the Johnson & Johnson folks themselves, when they don't know they're being recorded, says shouldn't be given for kids because we don't know the long-term risks and the long-term side effects. This same vaccine that children have been paralyzed from, have had horrible neurological issues from, and all kinds of other things, that, according to VAERS, has even resulted in some deaths. But because you question that a school might require little Johnny to put that in his body against his will and your will, well, you know what? Now the Department of Justice says that you, Mr. and Mrs. Parent, are a domestic terrorist and need to be treated as such under this memo. This is where we are in the world today. Fun times. So that is the TLDR version of that. It ended up not being all that TLDR, but close enough. Let's see, I saw that we got in some other super chats here. Let's see. Let's go on this side. Rancho Chava says that is definitely emphasizing over here. I'm not sure what that was in reference to. I think that was when we were still talking about California, and it might have been when we were still talking about California and Colorado, this weird organ transplant thing in Colorado, or it might have been about the math in Oregon. Gardner sent a super chat and the message was taken away. Oh, because he scrolled up his spelling. He says, I screwed up my spelling on the earlier super chat. Meant to say I'm late. I was submitting my homework via TikTok. Love ya, LD. When I saw that, I just couldn't believe it. That they're like, yes, children, these children of color don't know how to do math right, and so we can't expect them to do paperwork, and so now, to not be racist, we have to allow them to give the wrong answer and submit it via TikTok. Like, how do you even submit homework, math questions via TikTok? I don't understand. I don't understand at all, but so that encompasses and sums up all the major news items of the week. So hopefully next week there will not be flooding issue. There won't be other issues coming up, and I'll be able to make the stream look pretty and get those alert drop downs looking the way that they're supposed to. And again, if you are on Patreon or Subscribestar and have not done so yet, go check it out. You can go to the Discord link that's there and create a Discord account if you don't have one already. If you do have one, make sure to link it with Patreon or Subscribestar so you can get into our exclusive Discord. It's been pretty poppin', actually, and I don't think there's probably a ton of people online on it right now because they are probably here in the chat. But let's see, we even have someone that's on Do Not Disturb here. So actually there's 15 people online in the Discord right now and another 71 that are offline. So we're popping over there, and it's anyone who's ever been, the people in it now are anyone who's ever been on the Discord, like, or in a Patreon or Subscribestar ever. If you were linked to it and when we're a supporter, you can also get there now if you support through my website. So if you do have a subscription to the website, send me an email so I can give you the Discord link and get you set up with that. And once YouTube finally, I don't know, makes it live, then also you can do it through channel memberships. On channel memberships, YouTube requires it, so you will get one perk that the regular folks on Patreon and Subscribestar don't, and that is special custom emojis, but you get the custom emojis in the Discord, and I made them myself. I literally drew them myself. They're pretty cute. I'm disgustingly proud of myself. So that's some of the stuff that you get there. So everyone, baby bump time. Request for the baby bump. Okay. Oops, I just ran over the dog a little bit. All right, baby bump time. Let's see. Can we get that in there? Let's see. It's hard to get it in screen. But, tomorrow is 31 weeks. Oh my god, tomorrow is 31 weeks. That's kind of scary. Baby is active and is head down and is doing all of the things that she is supposed to be doing, so she is good. And Q says friendly gesture, dude. Thank you, Q. So everyone, thanks for all of the folks who were in the chat and put up with the continued technical difficulties. They will be resolved eventually. I'm at least glad that I remembered how to actually go live with the OBS, so that is good. So thank you for everyone in the chat. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you especially to the mods. I know some of you were rushing to get here tonight and weren't sure if I was going to be live because in all of the chaos today, I forgot to create the live stream event until 5 o'clock. Thank you to all of the supporters and the folks hanging out in the Discord and making it awesome. Thanks to everyone who gave this a like. And I think that's it. And so everyone have a good rest of your weekend. I mean, it's Friday night, so it's technically the weekend, right? There will hopefully be some videos out soon. There's a whistleblower over at the ATF that is not getting the same attention as the whistleblower at Facebook, but they've got some pretty juicy revelations, and so that is the topic that I'm working on now, and we'll hopefully get that out soon. So, again, thanks everyone for tuning in, and all the other thank yous that I did already, and I will see you next week. And now, we've got this cool screen to end it out, so it's not as awkward when I push all of the buttons that I have to push to end the stream. So, thanks again, and good night, everyone!